All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to today's Insight webinar. My name is Adam Kurtz, by the way. I've been with Sylvan for 24 years. Gosh, it's hard to imagine it's been that long, but here I am. And we are going to talk about actually a very new feature about adding new custom groupings, custom aggregates, whatever you want to call that. But now you have this ability to do just that. How do we do that? And we're going to talk about that today. So welcome, and let's look at the topics we want to cover. So again, talking about master file data importing attributes. So how do we custom groupings or custom aggregates? How do we do that? So we're going to be discussing the data hub. So we'll have just a brief discussion about what that is. Some of the setup involves this concept of a user-controlled attribute, so we'll talk about that. And then we'll look at some more setup criteria for this concept of master file data import. What does the Excel file data look for? That's where the attribute is going to come from. Actually, it's going to come from an Excel file. So what does that need to look like? How does that need to be built? I'm going to demo everything so that you can see how this works. And then we'll take some questions. So that's kind of the plan for today. So here's the data hub picture. I know that we show this a lot and you might be getting sick of it, but nevertheless, it is the data hub. And this is, I think, a really good pictorial of what the solution provides. As you can see here on the front end side of things, the access side, there's many different ways that you can access the data within Stratum. Right in the middle is the hub itself, the application, the different areas of application and data that is stored there. And then on the left-hand side, we can see that we've got areas of feeding data into Stratum, whether we're using traditional ETL tools or Stratum Link, or if we're using data import. In this case, we're actually doing some what we call master data augmentation. So let's kind of see how we do that. But that's the data hub, and today we'll be talking about a portion of the Stratum Analyst Hub, which is where the master data import falls into. Here we have a pictorial of the traditional methods of getting data into Stratum. So on the far right-hand side, we can see the Stratum Data Hub, and we can see the traditional feeds that come in for sales and inventory, classic data feeds that we see with all of our customers. Normally, we're using some sort of ETL tool to do this. If we're hosting the solution, we actually have our own ETL tool called Stratum Link. And we can talk more about that if you're interested. That's a zero footprint ETL tool that is, you can access via your web browser, and you can import data into Stratum that way. Down in the middle, we see through Excel the ability to actually go in and import data using the Stratum Analyst Hub, where we're going to use the master data import to get data. So, again, we have two different types of data importing from Excel. We've got the master data import, which is what we're talking about today. And then you also can actually import just data. So for instance, classically, you would use that for Excel, or I should say budgets or forecasts, or something along those lines, where you have data stored within Excel for those reasons. So yeah, you've got this analyst hub that provides the ability to feed data in through the interface, and the source of data would be Excel, of course. And then down on the bottom, we're seeing this, more and more as we progress through time here, cloud sources of data where we're actually importing data using either Stratum Link or some sort of form of API of getting data into. So that's kind of how we see the landscape these days in the world of Stratum. The master data import, before we start getting into how we do it, how does it work? As you can see, there's some licensing implications here. So if you're on a named user license, you have full access to everything. So there's nothing to worry about there. But If you don't have a name user license, you might want to look into whether you're licensed to use this piece. Um, we can help you get licensed for that, of course. You can contact me and we can talk about how we can get you licensed to use this feature. And then down on the bottom, you can see that you do need to be on SQL Server. So your Stratum database needs to reside on SQL Server, and that you need to be on version 7.1 or greater. So who can access master data import? Well, basically all the security and view administrators have full permissions to it. So these are the folks that will be setting up the actual user controlled attributes. But that doesn't mean that the analyst can't do this or import the data themselves. Advanced, as you can see down on the bottom, advanced and casual users can access the data import features if administrators give them access to it. So there is a way to give them access to the data import process feature. So this is kind of wordy, I know, but it is basically, it's good information to have, and we can always shoot this PowerPoint out to you. But it is in our help document, and it kind of defines what a user control attribute is, essentially. It's easier than you think it is, essentially, is what I'm trying to say here. But as you can see, you can add attributes to complement your data that you're feeding in today. For instance, if you're feeding in a product, and I'm going to show this, you're feeding in products today, you're selling products, you're actually, importing master file data today, descriptions for the product, other master file items for that product, like, standard cost, perhaps other, like weight or measurements, things like that, are typical of what we see of master file data getting imported for a product. But say, for instance, a marketing analyst wants to, categorize certain products based on a program or a campaign. Well, this typically would not reside in the ERP unless you set it up that way. But certainly you can set some relationships up to those products with an Excel spreadsheet, and the analyst might have just that. So certainly you can complement your products today with another attribute that you can actually feed in using Excel. So at that point, you can import master data, and you can do this at any time. You can do it within the day. And as long as the user controlled attribute is set up, there is that caveat where the user controlled attribute does need to be set up, and the cube needs to be processed at least once before you can actually do some of these things. Another really cool concept is this ability to define new data summarizations. So not only are you importing an attribute, but you do have the option of saying, yes, I want this to be a virtual dimension as well. So this will behave as a virtual, basically just like any other dimension that you have within your application. So, that's a really nice feature. And I'll show you how this works. And certainly that's something that I think that, well, some of our customers are already using some of that today, and it's really cool. So here's an example of what my file looks like. It's really simple. Here I've got the product, and I'm kind of going to show you how I'm playing the role of a marketing analyst. So simply, I have an Excel spreadsheet with my items. I don't necessarily have to have the long description in there, so you can have it in there if you want. No big deal. You can always end up ignoring that column. And then I've actually got two different columns here, one for my first group marketing code, and then my second group marketing code, which they're basically the same. It's just to show you that you can have more than one column in attribute column within your file, and then you'll end up mapping the one that you want to use when you import it. Real simple. Here we can see I've got basically two distinct group marketing codes that I'm using here. So at a 10,000 foot level, we can see that the user controlled attribute for that marketing code is being set up. So that needs to be done. And the administrators would do that for you. Once the cube is processed, then you can actually import the data using that Excel file. And then once that job finishes, and by the way, that job finishes within, again, reasonably speaking, within minutes. And you do not have to wait for another nightly process, which is really nice too. And so here we have the result. And so as you can see my attributes here for all the different items that I have. And now I can actually use that as a dimension. So I'm actually summarizing the data by those values that I have within my Excel spreadsheet. Pretty cool. So again, adding in attributes and then making it a virtual dimension allows you to then summarize it within the view that you have within Stratum. If you need to contact me about any of this, we're going to take a look at a demo real quick. There's my information, so feel free to contact me at any time to discuss this. And certainly we can discuss licensing as well. All right, so how do we do this? Basically, here's what my file looks like, and we already saw this, right? So here is the file. I've got all the different items, I've got their descriptions, and then I've got the group marketing code that I want to use to import that in. So the user would construct this file. Certainly you can download this file from Viewer. And we do have an Excel connector where you can connect directly to the interface and download data directly into Excel. So we have a Stratum add-in that we talked about actually on the last Insight. So that's available too. So you can certainly build this file very quickly and easily using the Excel add-in, which is basically what I did. So now I've got these codes. I now want to import these into my Stratum interface. And then I want to make this a dimension so that I can do the same thing. I want to be able to summarize the data by these two codes. So let's go into the interface. Now that we have it here, I've got my interface open. I've got my Power BI desktop here waiting to authenticate. And so the Power BI connector, as you can see, has built in my home dashboard. So how do I get to, this is version 7.3. This is the ability to go into Analyst Tool in the right-hand corner here, and I go in and I see my master data import. If you're not on 7.3, you'll have a data import, master data import on the left frame menu under Admin Tools or Admin Utilities. So when I go into that, those are the attribute import jobs that I have. But before we go into there, let's take a look at the actual we have to look at the user controlled attributes. So this would be set up prior to us actually importing the data for our new attribute. Here we can see that for product, I've got a user controlled attribute set up for me for the dimension of product. My attribute name is called product marketing group code. My default value will be a question mark. So for any products that I don't import a value for, they'll get a question mark assigned to them for that attribute. Do I want to create a hierarchy? Yes, I want to create a hierarchy here, and it's going to be called product prod marketing group code. I know it's a little redundant, but it has to be unique. So that's something that you can think about there. So that gets set up, that gets processed. And then that becomes available then for me to use my data import. So now the user can go in and they can pursue the master data import, where I can come in and add a new job. I can then select the file that I have for my attribute. Here's the file we just looked at within Excel. And lo and behold, it's already mapped because of my metadata within the Excel file, which is nice. So I'm ready to go. Actually, I can kick this off and it will process and then send me an email when it's ready to go. You have some options here for importing the data. You can either update what you have in there already, or you can replace the entire lot, which is something you need to be cautious about here. Configuration, again, you have the same concept here. You have two target dimensions because there's actually two different user controlled attributes that are set up. So again, the analyst needs to be, if the analyst is doing this, they need to be privy of what's going on and what some of those features provide. Once you're ready, you can kick it off. You can actually submit the data by pressing this button right here, and it will actually submit it. And again, like I said, you'll get an email saying that the data has been imported and it is ready to be viewed. So how do we view it? Well, we come into a view here. I'm running a comparative sales view, nothing fancy. Waiting for the view to return here. And we see the view returns with my data. I've got at divisional level. And here we have that new dimension. So what happens when I drill to that? Well, it shows me that just those two distinct codes and how the data is proportioned based on those relationships to the item level. If I drill in on 12380K, I can see all the items that are related to that new attribute. I could also add the attribute in here if I wanted to add in the actual attribute field. I could do that here as well, right here. It's a bit redundant, but it does reinforce that the data is correct. So if I want to drill in on everything here, I can see how it breaks out. And it looks fantastic. That's exactly what I want to see there, obviously. And we can see that the 456 FCB marketing code has more items in it. So I can segment those out. And my 12380K, that's the actual marketing code that I want to monitor, and only has a select few of products in there as well. So was able to actually assign a custom code to the products. And I was not only was I able to create this attribute using data from that Excel spreadsheet, but I was also able to actually create this new dimension where I can aggregate the data, and I could see, the data aggregated just on that dimension that we just created. So pretty cool stuff. So that's kind of, and don't forget that you have the help screen menu up here. So if I come into my online help, the help menu comes up, and if I do a master data import search, I get all kinds of tips for setting up my master data import, working with master data import. It comes and brings you to all the different topics that you have for this particular feature. So make sure you go through that, read who has access to this, etc. So it's good stuff. Review that and read up on it and get educated on that. Also, we're also available. So if you want to engage our professional services, that's something that we do as well. We can help you set this up and get it. It's not a lot of work, and we can talk about licensing as well. So